I went from hating coding and actually still not being able to code to landing a cybersecurity job within 1 year. Now, if you feel lost, stuck, and you think cybersecurity is out of reach, well, stick around in this video because I'm going to share the 5 things that I would do if I started all over again. Hi, my name's AJ. I've been in cybersecurity for the last 9 years, and on this channel, I teach all things cybersecurity for beginners. So let's get into it. So lesson 1, skip the coding obsession and focus on fundamentals first. Back when I was 17, I actually did a computing class for one of my A levels. And during that computing class, I had to do coding and I hated it. I actually ended up dropping it after 1 or 2 months. So this was my first introduction to coding, and it wasn't something that I could get my head around. And it's still the same today. And it's something that I didn't focus on at that time and decided not to focus on at university either. And when I graduated university, I knew cybersecurity was the path I wanted to go down, but I just didn't know how to get there. And again, I thought coding was where I needed to start. So I started trying to learn things like Python, and again, I couldn't get my head around it. I was getting really frustrated, and I actually thought I'm not going to be able to get into cybersecurity if I can't code. So instead of focusing on coding, I started to look into the fundamentals of computers. Something like the CompTIA A+ is very good for that today, and even the CompTIA Network Plus as well, just to help me start to understand the fundamentals of computers, fundamentals of networking, and the CompTIA Security Plus as well, that helped me build up those fundamentals of security. Now, I'm not saying that if you can code that you should stop learning it now. Coding is an excellent skill that you can use in cybersecurity, but I just want you to know that if you can't code, don't let it put you off trying to get a cybersecurity job. And what I would actually do first is focus on your IT and networking fundamentals with something like the CompTIA A+ and the CompTIA Network Plus. So lesson 2 then is actually to focus on computer networking. The reason for this is that it is the heart of cybersecurity, and ultimately cybersecurity is the protecting of networks. You do need to understand how they work. Now, you're not expected to be a networking expert here. For example, when I was at university, I had a small networking module and I really enjoyed it. Within that networking module, there was a small section of computer security, which is what triggered my interest in cybersecurity. But I'm glad that I did do that networking module, because it did really help me build those fundamentals in networking and help me understand how computers talk to each other, because ultimately then this helped me understand how attackers then actually compromise networks. And again, like I said, I wasn't a networking expert. Even something like the CompTIA Network Plus now is fantastic, but it does go really in-depth into networking, and it can sometimes be off-putting, but don't let it put you off cybersecurity, because the CompTIA Network Plus, it goes really in-depth into networking, which is a good thing. But if there's some topics in there that you don't understand, things like subnetting, maybe even TCP/IP, don't worry about it. Just try and learn as much as you can. And like I said, what you're trying to understand is how networks actually are created, how they're connected together, how traffic moves along these networks, and how actually source and destinations actually speak to one another. Because like I said, this is going to help you understand how to then protect these networks. So focus on your fundamentals, and especially focus on your fundamentals in networking. Understand the things like the OSI model, TCP/IP, HTTPS traffic, for example. Understanding the different devices that are on a network, your firewalls, your routers, switches, for example. All of this fundamentals in networking is really going to help you get to that next stage of understanding the fundamentals of cybersecurity. And I would recommend going into the CompTIA Security Plus after doing your CompTIA Network Plus, because there is a lot of crossover in content as well that can actually make it easier to pass both exams if you learn for Network Plus first, then learn for Security Plus after. So lesson 3 then is actually to embrace Linux early. And it's not as actually scary as it seems. So even when I started my first cybersecurity job, Linux wasn't something that I was very familiar with. I hadn't used it that often, and I was quite intimidated when other people in the company were recommending that I use Linux virtual machine, for example, to do my analysis on malicious files. This wasn't something that I had actually done before. And while Windows is the most used operating system, and you do want to understand how Windows works and actually use Windows, how to protect it, Linux and tools like Kali Linux, for example, are very good for when you actually want to do analysis on particular files, maybe executables. So that's why I would recommend embrace it early and start to understand it. And there's tools like Over the Wire, which are kind of like capture the flag style tools that you can go through to start to learn Linux. So Over the Wire, there's also Linux Journey as well. But one best recommendation is what I would do is just set up a Linux virtual machine, maybe set up Kali Linux, and only test yourself to be able to perform any task on that operating system or virtual machine using the command line. So don't try to use the GUI interface at all. Just challenge yourself for 1 month to do everything on the command line, and within that month you'll become much better at Linux compared to what I was when I first started my cybersecurity job. Or even setting up an Ubuntu server on your virtual machine and running some of the basic commands, your ls, cd, and all of these basic commands. Have a go, and like I said, for 1 month, just test yourself just to use the command line. So lesson 4, what I've noticed is that certifications do matter, but job skills are much more important. So how I see it now is that certifications like your CompTIA Network Plus, your CompTIA Security Plus, they're very much there. They are good to actually help test that knowledge. So if you go towards and pay for the exam, it's going to help you stick towards learning that knowledge. But ultimately, what those certifications are going to do is actually help you get into interviews. So a lot of the job descriptions that you'll see will ask for CompTIA certifications as a bare minimum these days. So the requirement is there to actually help you get interviews and actually help your resume and your CV flag up to hiring managers so that they will put you forward for these interviews. Now, this is all well and good, and these certifications, like I said, will help you build the fundamentals in networking, fundamentals in cybersecurity, but they do lack the actual hands-on skills for a particular job role. So when you have learned the fundamentals, you want to start to understand which jobs you're most interested in and learn the skills related to that job role. So I started as a cybersecurity analyst. That's still a good area to go into today as a beginner. If that's an area that you want to go down into, start to learn the skills related to that job. Look into the job description, start to understand things like SIEM, which stands for Security Information Event Management Tool. These are tools that all cybersecurity analysts are using on a daily basis. Start to learn about how AI and automation is affecting cybersecurity analyst jobs. What they're requiring now is that you understand how these AI tools are being used to make security operations centers more efficient. We also are expected now to also understand how attackers are actually attacking these AI systems as well. So we need to learn how to protect them. So looking into frameworks like the MITRE ATT&CK framework, they've got a framework called Atlas, which demonstrates how attackers are attacking these LLM and AI-based systems. So once you start to learn the core skills related to a particular job role, you then want to do your home projects related to each one of those skills for that job. So like I said, with SIEM, setting up your own SIEM at home. Like I've got a video on this channel that teaches you exactly how to do that. Set up your own AI and workflow automations. Again, I've got videos that teach you that, and I'll link one at the end of this video as well. But ultimately, what you're trying to do here is build the experience that these companies are asking for. Certifications get you through the door, but what home projects do and evidence portfolios do is actually give you the experience to talk about in interviews, so that you can demonstrate, even when you don't have any job experience, that you do actually have some hands-on experience. And that these days is much more important than certifications, because these home projects actually demonstrate that you can do the job, which is what employers are looking for these days. So lesson number 5 then is to actually learn red teaming and offensive security sooner rather than later, and also start to learn AI as well. So I'll start with offensive security and red teaming. When I was first starting out, I was very much learning the blue team defensive side, which is hugely important and usually the easier area to go into. But even as a blue team defender, as a cybersecurity analyst, you need to start to think like an attacker, so that we can start to understand how to protect the networks by defending the techniques that these attackers use. And the only way to do that is start to learn offensive security. So looking into things like Try Hack Me, Hack the Box, they're also very good to help you give the kind of hands-on understanding of how these attackers are performing some of these techniques. But then there's also things like the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So I mentioned MITRE ATT&CK framework's Atlas framework, but they've also got other frameworks related to different technologies as well. So you can look in there to start to understand how attackers are attacking Windows systems, for example, how they attack certain network devices, and it lists out the steps that an attacker will take to try and compromise application, cloud infrastructure, and then within that step then are the particular techniques that they'll use. So by going through here, it's going to help you understand what these attackers are doing. It's to help you keep up to date with the new and latest attacks, because these are the kind of things that companies are going to ask you in interviews. How can you protect our cloud infrastructure from this latest offensive attack technique? Then you're going to be able to, in that interview, then describe how you would do that using the information that you've got from the MITRE ATT&CK framework, or something like Hack the Box, or even doing your own home labs as well, where you're doing some offensive home labs. Now, this is something that I didn't think about much when I was first starting out, because I was just trying to learn the blue team side, but I would recommend blue team side is the better area to go into as a beginner, but having that red teaming and offensive knowledge is hugely important as well. Because like I said, after my first role, when I was going into interviewing for my second role, I didn't have a lot of this knowledge, and when I was being asked in interviews about red team tactics and attacker tactics and techniques, I was lacking in this area, and I was failing a lot of the interviews for this. So if I was to go back, I would recommend learn offensive security sooner, but still go down the blue team side and the defender side, because it's an easier area to get a job first. And now AI as well. So back when I started 9 years ago, AI tools weren't that popular and they didn't really exist, but now they're a focal point in every industry, and cybersecurity is no different. So like I've already mentioned, AI tools, the expectation from companies now is that we know how to use them to create workflows, to make security operation centers and different cybersecurity processes more efficient, to reduce the need for people to do manual tasks. And the other area is to understand how to actually protect these systems. So how to protect these LLM tools. Let's say that a company brings and onboards ChatGPT, for example. How do we make sure that the data within that is entered into ChatGPT is actually secured and that it can't be compromised? None of the data is leaked, for example. These are the kind of things that attackers are going to be looking out for. These AI tools are just new attack vectors that hackers and attackers are going to be looking into. So we now, as cybersecurity professionals, need to understand how to actually protect them. So things like the MITRE ATT&CK framework, the Atlas framework, understand how attackers poisoning data in these ChatGPT style LLM tools, for example. There's many different attack techniques that attackers are coming up with for these new AI systems. Now we need to understand how to protect them. And in relation to making security operation centers more efficient, we need to start to understand how to build these workflows using tools like Tines, Talk, for example, even N8. Ultimately, you want to think about different processes in a security operation center, and then how can we automate them. One example being a phishing email analyzer, which I'll link to the end of this video. So we have a phishing mailbox. Employees, clients send phishing emails to this mailbox. It automatically analyzes the phishing email for us and gives us a result. These are the kind of things that used to be done manually by cybersecurity professionals, but now with these workflow automation tools, we can start to automate them, and this is what these companies are looking for. So to conclude then, you now know that my journey from going from hating coding when I was younger to getting into cybersecurity wasn't an easy one, but it was possible. Now, I'm not hating on coding. If you can code, then I do recommend that you try and get that as a skill. That's just another skill in your arsenal when it comes to trying to get a cybersecurity job. But take it with proof from myself, you don't need to code to get into cybersecurity. And I recommend doing these other 5 lessons, starting with your fundamentals in computing, starting in your fundamentals in networking, starting with your fundamentals in cybersecurity, then moving on to actually learning about networking, to then Linux and embracing Linux early, to understanding which certifications can actually help you get interviews, but also, as I mentioned, focus on the job skills and do your home projects and build your e-portfolio to get the experience, and start learning about offensive security sooner, and now start learning about how AI is affecting the cybersecurity industry. So I want to say thank you for watching. Now, if you want to learn about an AI cybersecurity project where I show you how to build your own phishing email analyzer, go and watch this video next. I want to say thank you for watching. I'll see you over there.